I just got so stuck. Like I couldn't, that my self-belief and my trust in myself and my trust in my abilities and the trust in who I am, and also that really loud voice that's still there now, that has actually stopped me up until now, which has been, nobody wants to hear you. No one wants to hear what you have to say. What you have to say is not relevant to anybody on this earth. So you
Mm.
may as well just go and sit in your cave and just keep what you're doing to yourself. And so when you have such a strong voice and such a strong belief system, you can't do anything. So I have the Facebook page and I also have the YouTube channel, but they've both been dormant for so long that I'm just starting to get movement again now with this show. I'm hoping. Because I am
Good for
pushing now
you.
against that part of me that keeps saying, you're not relevant. No one cares. I mean, no, someone cares.
Mm.
Someone will care. And then as I've been having these conversations with people, it's like, no, these are really important conversations to have, because
Mhm.
there are not enough people having these conversations that are willing to share the fact that they've either been sexually abused or physically abused, or they've gone through people ending their life, or they've gone through bankruptcy, or they've gone through losing everything, or they've gone through physically abusive partners. Like, just in the 5 or 6 phone calls I've had, we've kind of covered those topics.
Wow.
And it's so more people need to be willing to have these conversations.
Mm. Yes. Yes. I have goosebumps. When you were talking, there's you have something that the world needs. And the stronger that voice is that opposes that, the more you have to bring.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Like
Mm-hmm.
it feels like because there's a force that's acting against like the light and the dark, or the yin and the there's these forces. I believe that there's a dark force that constantly pushes against us.
Yeah, me too.
And the stronger it pushes against us, the brighter the light we have to bring.
Mm.
And so when you were talking about that and how you've been shushed for 15 years because of that, what I see is the enormous potential of light that you have to bring. And so I am encouraged that you're doing this and that you're taking action on this. Um, and yeah, it's hard. That voice is hard to overcome. I mean, and I've been going through that this whole time too. I mean, there was a time when I couldn't even talk without my voice shaking just to another person.
Yeah.
So it for me to speak is amazing. People that knew me 5 years ago are amazed that I can speak the way I can speak today because I just couldn't before. But it was that I think that's part of the gift I bring.
Mm.
And it was being squelched by that voice. So it does take a tremendous force from within to overcome that. But
Yeah.
kudos to you for starting on that. And I would love to. I have you had your human design chart read?
Um, no, not the full chart. I know that I'm a projector 3/5.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know anything other than that.
Okay.
That's all I
Okay.
know.
Okay. And how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
47.
Ish. 47. Okay. That's okay. So what I found in my life is right around 47 is when I was introduced to human design and I started my human design experiment.
Mm.
And what I'm even this morning in my reflection, in my meditation time, it was coming to me that women between the 45 and 52 range, they come into a whole new side of life, a whole new part of life. And as they do that, this human design gives them a pathway to who they are,
Mm.
to their path of authenticity and how to show up in the world in a way that's powerful and that's unique to them. So, projectors are only 20% of the population. So it's a small percentage of the population. And the projectors hold within their DNA, within their structure, they hold the blueprint of where we're headed, of the evolution of humanity. So projectors are very precious and important. And it's important that they are speaking because we all collectively need what they have to bring in order for us to get to where we need to go.
Mm.
And each one of us has a voice that's important. There's people that will hear you that won't hear somebody else. And there's people that will hear them that won't hear you. But our job is just to speak our truth and let the people find us who are meant to find us. But you hold something very precious. Now, the three is a tough number to have. That's one of the toughest profile numbers to have
Which is
because,
not surprising to me at all.
right? And five is another one that's really hard.
Yeah.
3 and 5 out of all of them are the toughest ones to have because the three is the trial and error. So the three is designed to show us new ways of doing things, but the only way they can know how to do things is to try and fail and try and fail and try and fail. And each time they try and fail, they figure out what doesn't work. So then they find a new way that does work. That is the nature of the three. That is the purpose of the three.
I'm
When
guessing
you look at,
that is the three in the ideal world. But when you've got a three that is damaged by the past, then what you have is a three that tries and tries and tries and tries and fails and fails and fails and fails and then goes, yeah, nothing works. Why even bother trying if I'm always going to fail? And
mm-hmm,
that's where I hit another
sure.
another platform as to why I stopped and just pulled everything down and shut everything down was that constant, but you're going to fail anyway. So
Mm,
why bother if you're going to keep failing? And that has haunted me for years because I was
mm-hmm,
up against, in family, that comparison, being compared to siblings who were high achievers, did excellent in school, straight A's, did university degree, like
mm-hmm,
absolutely succeed. And when you've got a sibling that succeeds, but you got C's and D's and E's because school was never designed for the way your brain functions. And
mm-hmm,
then you also didn't succeed at sport and didn't succeed at music, but the next door neighbor would sit there and play her clarinet for hours on end, but you'd sit and try and play the clarinet and like I'd do it for 10 minutes and I'd compare and go, I don't sound like that. Like
mm-hmm,
I can't get to that level. I'm just going to stop. And I know other people have this too. But yeah,
mm-hmm,
from what you've just said with the projector, if the whole design of a projector 3.5 is to fail to figure out what not to do, but you have
mm-hmm,
that pattern, then there'd be a whole pile of us out there that are threes that just stop because we just got so
mm-hmm.
sick of failing all the time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
keep going with the five. I'm keen to hear about the five now.
Okay, so five is a fun one when you figure it out. I have five in mind, so I'm a 5-1. The
Mm-hmm.
five is the leader, the universalizer, the savior. So the fives carry an energy of being a leader, being a problem solver, and we universalize truths that we've discovered on our own. So when we learn something, we want to universalize it and teach it to others.
Mm.
So I've had a lifetime of emotional neglect and abuse as a child, which turned into CPTSD, which turned into these constant voices of, I can't, why bother? Like constant. It sounds a lot like what you have going, just this
Yeah.
constant nagging, never good enough. Somebody else is doing it better than me. Always somebody else knows better than me. I don't have a voice. I'm not worthy, all of those things. So now going through all of that, now I can stand here and now I want to teach other people how to go through that process, teach other people how to feel into their worthiness and to find that space in them, because that didn't go away. So the 5 is the one that says, okay, now I've learned this. Now I want to change the world. Now I want to tell everybody else. Now I want everybody else to benefit from what I've learned. That's the 5. So also we carry an energy of the savior. So people come to us with problems to solve, and we want to help them because that's part of our design. But if we try to help somebody and it's not our person to help, because we can't help everybody, we can't save everybody, but we can save the ones we're supposed to save. If we're trying to save somebody that's not ours to save, then it never works. And then we have failure again, right? Then it's back to the whole thing of, I shouldn't do this anyway. So for us, for 5s, it's important to recognize, who is my people? Who am I here to save? Who can I save? And checking in internally before trying to help somebody. The 5s, the other thing about being a 5 is it's hard to be seen. It's hard for people to see us because we have this, they call it a projection field that lives around us. And so when people look at us, they see what they need. They see what we can do for them. They don't see the true us. So it's like we're hidden away behind this veil and nobody really we don't really feel seen or heard. That's typical for a 5. And I've experienced that in my life. So I don't have a lot of close friends, and I never have had long-term close friends. And that's typical of a 5 also.
Is that why? Because
so
I don't have any close friends. Like I've got some that, so this is how I describe my friendships. I have a number of friends and they all see a part of me, but nobody actually knows all of me, because there's always a veil that is like, I show, if I'm in front of this friend, then they see this part, like they see this funnel. And then I'm in front of this friend and then they'll see this funnel. And it's really interesting because my dad once said to me that he thought I was schizophrenic. And he said, I've watched you, and he said, you are a different person depending on who you are standing in front of. I think you've got a problem. You're schizophrenic. And I've always looked at that and gone, yeah, I never saw it like that. I remember thinking about it in my 20s going, yeah, I don't think schizophrenia is my issue. I think it's a protection. So I protect certain parts of me, and I am the person to be accepted and to be seen with the person that I'm standing in front of. I will be who they need me to be in that moment, because otherwise they wouldn't see me. I wouldn't be able to have a conversation with them. If I do not fit their box and their funnel and their space, I wouldn't be able to communicate. Because I'm sure maybe you understand this, but I can stand in front of someone and talk about the weather, because that's what they want to talk about. It's very boring and mundane to me, but I can have that conversation, and I can have a friend that just wants to talk about the weather and just wants to talk about the kids and just wants to talk about general life stuff. It's a very surface level. But then I can sit in front of someone else and dive in deep into their stories and their trauma and their patterns and have these really deep emotional conversations. But then I can have these really deep spiritual conversations with another person. But I cannot talk about the weather with the person that I talk to about the spiritual conversations, and they will never see that part of me. And then this other person will never see this part of me. Does that all kind of make sense? Like, I thought it was just me being controlling and too protective. But if it kind of matches a 5, then it's kind of like, well, maybe it's just my makeup.
Well, I believe we have lots of layers and dimensions to us. I think the 5 explains a lot of what you just said. Now, it could be that the emotional, relationships you had as a child now impact the way you interact with people. And that can also impact that. But what you just said falls in alignment with the 5 energy. So that is, so yeah. So knowing that about yourself and then accepting that about yourself, for me, it freed me, because before I thought there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And then once I learned that, I was like, okay, it's okay not to have friends. It's okay for me not to have close friends. That's just not a luxury I get in this life as a 5. And once I accepted that, and I'm like, okay, I'm the leader. So I'm now out in front being the leader because that's my design. Whereas before I was trying to fit in with everybody, trying to just fit in and
I'm trying to stay back with the herd.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And then when I finally was like, okay, I can't, if me being in the herd is what's causing me not to be who I am. And when I realized that, then it was like, okay, I'm a leader, and that's my role. And so then I embraced it and started experimenting with that. And I'm not saying it's not lonely. There's times when it's lonely and I cry, and maybe someday it'll be different. I don't know. But that is just one of the sad things about 5. There are Facebook groups specifically for 5s. If you have a 5 in your profile, there's multiple 5 groups that you can go into, and they talk about this stuff. And they talk about all of the things that what does it mean to be a 5? Because there's so much that goes into being a 5 or having a 5 in your profile. So that's one place where I found a lot of the information that helped me make sense of who I was. Was in those groups. And I wouldn't be surprised if I looked at your chart and there was a lot of white spaces. Do you remember what your chart looked like? Because it has,
but I could probably bring it up.
9 different shapes.
I think I did have it somewhere. I'm sure I had it open because I only just looked at it the other day. Is that it? No, that's not it. I'll have to see if I can find it. And
yeah, because
where it is.
Yeah.
No, hold on. I have to go back to Zoom again. There we go.
Okay.
I know I can talk to you about this for hours because I really want more information. But what I really, 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 really want to dive into, if we can, is there are a couple of things you said that I really want to dive into, just because you're further ahead than me in understanding this and how it's impacted you. And you're also kind of more on the other side than I am. And I want to get into the CPTSD and also the voices, like the voices that don't shut up. So yes, reading the Surrender Experiment, and also I can't think of the name of his other book, but reading both of those books and seeing how easy it was for him to just sit in silence and stop his brain. And like, we can't all, and he's very stout about the fact that everybody can do this. And sometimes I look at this everybody can do this concept and go, you know what, I don't think everybody can. Everybody can't be vegan. Everybody can't be carnivore. Everybody can't silence their mind. Everybody can't sit in meditation. Some of us, I can't sit in meditation for an hour. I get too fidgety. So I've come up with, for myself, a 5-minute meditation. It takes me 5 minutes. I can do 5 minutes 100 times a day. I can do 5 minutes. I can do it when I'm on the toilet. I can do it just before I pick up the phone. Like, I can do lots of 5 minutes over the course of the day and feel like I've come away having a better meditation than if I had sat down for an hour and tried to stop my brain.
So you can stop it for 5 minutes.
Pardon?
You can stop your mind for 5 minutes at a time.
5 minutes.
Okay.
It's not even 5 minutes. So it's a tool that I only just came up with over the last couple of days, really, because I've just been struggling so much with this story of have to meditate. Everybody says you have to meditate. The only way to hear your truth is if you sit and meditate and you quiet your brain. And And I hear people like Joe Dispenza and Kyle Cease, which are two people that I follow, and both of them sit in meditation for 2 hours a day. And I go, okay, well, clearly I get you guys have kids, but you're clearly not a single parent with zero support, because a single parent with zero support cannot sit for 2 hours and meditate. It's just not physically possible. And then because I homeschool my daughter, and I'm a single parent, and my mum and my dad have both passed away, and I have no family. There's no, and I'm, as I've just discovered, I'm a 5, so I have no friends. Like, there's no one on my island. I can't take even half an hour to sit and meditate, because there's always something. There's always a dog barking, or a cat, or a chicken, or a kid. Like, just allowing myself that time. It's too hard. But 5 minutes, I can sit for 5 minutes. I can take 5 breaths. I can do this technique. And then I can go, okay, yep, I'm settled. And then I can move forward. So when even when I do now, when I'm about to do something like this, I will take 5 minutes to do the 5 breaths. And I've been doing it the last couple of days, do the 5 breaths and just resettle everything, like calm my nervous system down. Because, as you know, if your brain is going, it's and it's really hard to even have a conversation. So the only way I can sit and listen for the length of time that I need to sit and listen to somebody talking, I have to settle everything down. Otherwise, I would constantly be interrupting the conversation, because my brain would be going, oh, say this, say this, say this, say this, go here. Oh, you need to, but what about this? And it wouldn't stop. But now that I've been able to really slow it down, I can sit and hear what you have to say and not have my brain say anything at all. I can just focus on you, which is, I'm sure, as you understand, is a big thing when you've gone through trauma, when you have CPTSD, and when you have that insane brain. So talk to me about your journey. Enough about me. Talk to me about your journey. Tell me about your CPTSD and how it impacted you.
Well, I just realized just like 3 weeks ago that I had CPTSD, or that there was a name for it. Like, I didn't know there was a name for it. I didn't realize there was a name for it.
It's such a relief when you find that out. Hey,
it's interesting. It's definitely, it gave me and there's been multiple things that fit within that, with, I think the symptoms of CPTSD are similar to other symptoms as well. They kind of overlap and all go together. For me, I had this intense sensitivity to rejection, like intense sensitivity to rejection. And so whenever there was a risk of rejection, I would turn off all systems and just acquiesce and just people please, go with the flow, whatever anybody else wants. And then, doing the business that I'm doing and doing the things that I'm doing require me to put myself out there to be rejected on a regular basis. And so for the last 3 years, I've been dealing with this. They call it, I mean, there's a name for it, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. I don't know if you've heard of that or if you have those symptoms, but it's common with the CPTSD. Has kept me from really stepping into my power and really stepping into my path. But we'll go back. Let's see, where do we want to go with this? So I started meditating 12 years ago, and it was really difficult for me. And at that time, I was struggling with addiction. So whatever it was, sugar was a big one for me. Wine was a big one for me. So there was a number of things that I turned to on a regular basis. Well, I started meditating, and over time, I started realizing that this insane mental dialogue that was just going over and over and over. It was just like this constant beating myself up over and over and over, that of course I'm going to want a break from that. And that's what the wine gave me, was a break, or the sugar gave me a break from that. And so understanding that over time, I started understanding this. It didn't happen overnight, right? This is, I'm talking from hindsight, looking back from this perspective, I can see, oh, now it makes sense that I had that behavior that wasn't really beneficial. But I started meditating 12 years ago, and I started with just a minute. Like, I couldn't even sit for a minute. It was really, really hard for me. But I was struggling with so many things, like so many things, was everything was overwhelmed. I was always in a state of overwhelm.
Yeah.
So that's how it impacted me. I was habituated to that overwhelmed feeling. So it didn't matter what was going on in my life, I was overwhelmed. And so meditation for me felt like the answer to help me get through this process. I was also married to a narcissist. I was also, we had a business together. Like, there was a lot of enmeshment with a very toxic relationship. And I knew I needed divine help to navigate this. So I started meditating, and I started with 1 minute, set the timer for a minute. And then once I mastered a minute, then I went to 2 minutes. Then I went to 3, and I just kept increasing it till I could get to 15. And 15 is what I heard was the magic number. If you can get to 15 every day consistently, the accumulation over time would give you the clarity that you need. So I took that to heart, and I did my 15 minutes a day. I said, by golly, I may not be able to quit drinking wine. I may not be able to leave this relationship. I may not be able to do any of those things, but for 15 minutes a day, I can sit and try to meditate. Like, that's one thing I can do if I do nothing else. And so I kind of made that kind of like stake in the ground. No matter what, I'm doing 15 minutes a day. And it meant I had to wake up earlier than everybody else in my household in order to have that time. Because once everybody got up, there was no way I was going to get 15 minutes. Like, no way. So I would get up earlier than everybody else just so I could have that time. And so that for me, that was my meditation journey. But it did benefit me tremendously. Then subsequently, we had a massive lawsuit with our business, and we ended up losing it, but not until there was a divorce in the middle of that, and then bankruptcy that happened subsequently. And then I ended up getting the business, and then the business fell apart in my hands because there was so much trauma and damage already done in the business. So this was a 10-year period of loss, 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 loss. And it felt like I just couldn't get up without being knocked back down again. And that's when I got to the end of that journey, because every time I would get up and get knocked back down, I was like, I'm not going to survive this one. This one is one that I am not going to survive. And I mean, it was crazy stuff that happened. Like, at one point, when I got the business back, and then I was rebuilding the business, I had gotten a loan for a large loan that was going to rebuild the business. And so in September, I got a commitment for a loan that was going to fund in December. So I had to make it for 3 months between the time I got the commitment till the money came. And so I just needed a bridge loan to get through that time. Now, I was bleeding about $100,000 a month during that time for the business. And I found a bridge loan. It was overseas. They were wiring me the money. So I emailed them my wiring instructions. And from the time I sent it until the time they received it, a hacker got the email, changed the wiring instructions, and sent it to them. They wired $150,000 to a hacker, and that money was gone. So you can imagine, at that point, I was like, okay, I just lost $150,000, like, lost, gone. I could do nothing to get it back. And then I started going into default, because at that point there was a judgment from the lawsuit, all of that happened. So I started going into default on that judgment, but it was still only 2 months until I got the loan. I was going to be fine, right? If I could just make it for those 2 months. And so literally I I made it through somehow. I made it through those 2 months. Well, then December came and the money didn't come. And then December 15th, I got a call and they said, the underwriter made a mistake and we can't fund this loan. And so literally at that point, there were so many things that I had done counting on that money, and then the money didn't come. And it was those kind of things that just kept happening over and over and over again that finally knocked me just completely out. And I said, okay, I mean, I literally can't do anything. Like literally, there's no way I can get that $150,000 paid back. There's no way I can save this company without money. So at that point, it was surrender time. So I was really pushed up against the wall, and in a corner. And that's when I read the Michael Singer book. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and surrender, and went into my surrender. And just the hardest part for me in the surrender process was turning this off, because I had this tape that kept saying, if anything's going to happen, it's up to you. You have to make the money. You have to support your kids. You have to pay the rent. You've got to figure out all of these things all by yourself. And so that was what was going on in my mind. So it was literally driving me crazy, because I believed I had to make all this happen. Otherwise, I was going to lose my house, I was going to lose my kids, like all the things.
Did you ever have those mummy meltdowns where you'd walk around and your kids kept asking you to buy stuff? Did you ever have those meltdowns where you go, there is no money, like there's nothing,
Yeah.
there's nothing left. I can't buy you this $10 toy. I get it's only $10, but there's nothing left. Like if I get you that $10 toy, that's the difference between you eating tomorrow or not eating tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're big. Yeah, sometimes we have these mummy meltdowns, especially
Yeah.
around money, right? Because I don't know about you, and
Especially around money.
I don't know if you had this and you ever had to unpack this, but I have this belief, especially around money, that I'm not meant to earn it. Because there's
Mm-hmm.
this belief in the world that the man is meant to be the hunter and the gatherer, and he goes out and he gets all the animals and gets all the money and then brings it back. And then the wife is meant to be the nurturer and the carer and take care of everything. And I guess in a perfect world, that's exactly what it's like. But when you have that belief anchored into you that you're not meant to, my thing with my mom and my aunt, I remember my aunt saying to me one day when I was 13 or 14, she said, I don't, so I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly, but it was something like, you're probably not going to get very far in life. So you should really focus on marrying a lawyer or a doctor, someone with money that can take care of you. And I think
Mm.
that somehow anchored into me.
Yeah.
I'm not meant to earn money. Like it's not my role. It's not my job. And then we're raised with Disney and we're raised with, Cinderella and Snow White, where they're all rescued by a
Yes.
man. They don't
Yes.
have to do anything. They live this pauper life, and then a man comes in and rescues them, and then off they go and they live their happy life. And so until the man comes in and rescues you, you live a pauper life, which is
Mm-hmm.
what I feel like I'm doing.
Yes.
So I'd love to kind of hear your journey, especially through the money stuff as well. Did you have
Mm-hmm.
any of those kind of things you had to unravel to be able to make money and to
Yes.
be able to ask for money, like as a coach, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to ask people for money and the
Oh,
worth of,
yes.
like, I'm really struggling with that too. And I've kind of decided at the moment, I'm not going to charge anyone for coaching. I love coaching. I've always loved doing it. So I'm going to do it for free, and I'm going to generate an income somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
some way else, because
Mm-hmm.
I find it really hard to say, but if I'm going to do this for you, you need to do something for me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can kind
Yeah.
of share your journey through all of that and how you came out the other side. I'm really interested in the how. Like, how did you undo all of that?
I am still undoing money stories. And what I believe with the money stories is that we're steeped in a
Mm.
society, we are bathed in an environment that carries these money stories. So yes, we can have them anchored inside, but even when we get rid of them or we unanchor them, they can come back at any time because we're bathed in the society that puts these ideas in us. So the money story is a huge conversation, and it's a huge conversation for a whole lot of people. And for me, my journey was, yes, I had that for sure, that I wasn't worthy to make money, and that I couldn't make money. And all of the stories that went around that were definitely something that I lived with. And what happened during and like I said, this is still being unpacked in my life today. I the What happened in my experiment was that money kept showing up for me. And I believe we all have our own experiment to have and our own journey to have. But when I went into total surrender and said, I mean, I can't dig myself out of $500,000 of debt. Like literally, I cannot go get a job and dig myself out of that debt. It's not going to, it just can't happen. So I went into full surrender. Show me how to dig myself out of this. Show me what to do. And what happened over time was money kept showing up for me. And it was random money that would show up literally in the mailbox, a check in the mail from the IRS, a refund, a check in the mail from an old vendor that I hadn't used for 10 years. So money would just keep showing up randomly, and I never ran out of money. And so what I had to do, and this was so hard, I had to overwrite those stories that were going on in my mind. So what I had to do when those money stories would come up, like I have to go earn money or I'm not going to be able to pay rent, I had to stop. And I had to do the exercises like you were just talking about, where you breathe and you get your nervous system calmed down. Because my nervous system would go right up into fight or flight, and I've got to go make money. And then I would do the skill like you talking about, or I go for a walk out in nature or something to calm myself down. And then I would have a conversation with my mind. What does the evidence show? The evidence has shown I've never been homeless, even though there were times when I should have been. I've never run out of money, even though I should have run out of money. It doesn't make sense that I have not worked since losing my company and I've been okay. It doesn't make logical sense. So for me, it was retraining my brain saying, okay, these beliefs that you have don't match the reality we're looking at. So when I stopped and I said, okay, what does the evidence show? The evidence shows we haven't run out of money in all these years. So we're going to stand on that camp. We're going to stand in that camp instead of standing in the camp that there's never enough money and I'm going to run out of money. So I had to physically choose to believe something different. And that took time. That took a lot of repetition. That took a lot of like I call it physically, but it's grabbing my mind and saying, no, we don't live in this camp anymore. We live in this camp. And over time, it's gotten easier to go back to, okay, we live in this camp. We don't live in this camp anymore. But it's something that, have you ever read the book by Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil?
I have read a few Napoleon Hill books. I don't know if I've read that one.
Well, you would know if you read it. It's one that he wrote way back when, but they just published it like in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Because his wife made him promise to never publish it while she was living, because of the fallout that she knew would happen when people read it, because it really speaks about religion and the education system and all of those things that are of the devil, not of the light. But anyway, so he goes into depth about our minds and how it just goes in a loop over and over and over. And so he calls it drifting. So we're just drifting through life and our stories are just going and our mind just goes until we stop it. but it takes a force to stop it and to redirect it. But it can be done. It does take repetition. It takes investigating, like, what is the truth? Because what we're hearing up here is not truth. It absolutely is not truth. The truth was being shown to me in evidence, but my mind believed what it believed. And so it was only seeing things through that lens. So I had to force my mind to open and say, okay, wait a minute, that's not true. This is what we've seen. So we're going to live in this truth. We're going to try on this belief. And so it is literally like, we're going to live in this belief. It's like kind of like putting on an outfit. Like, we're going to wear this outfit today. It's like, okay, mind, we're going to believe that we're not going to run out of money and everything's going to be okay. Today, we're going to live in that belief. And so it's constantly forcing my mind back to that state. And so for me, during the surrender experiment, because there was a lot of time of doing nothing, which was really hard, because for me, when my mind would be going like that, if I got myself into action, I felt better. But if I'm not doing inspired action, then I'm just in this whirlwind of reacting to my mind. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be doing inspired action. And so when I wasn't inspired to act, the mind didn't slow down. That was when the mind really ramped up. And so as I'm sitting around not working, not planning on how I'm going to pay my bills, my mind is going to town because there was nobody else to rely on. It was all up to me, and I wasn't doing anything.
So would you quite literally just sit and do nothing if you didn't feel inspired to take an action, would you just sit and do nothing and work on the thoughts that were coming up and wait for the inspiration? Or would you do other things like cleaning or like the mundane stuff? Would you do the mundane stuff around the house?
I would distract myself.
Yeah.
So my favorite distraction was going for a walk out in nature. And there were days that I went 2 and 3 times out for a walk because that nervous system would get ramped up and act up. And then at that point, I didn't know how to get it out. I didn't know how to stop. But when I was going for a walk out in the woods, it calmed down naturally.
Yeah.
So that was my thing. So but now I have other skills, like you're talking about breathing. There's other ways to get yourself back down, but it really was. And then I would do things that distract me. So I would do things like cleaning or walking or, talking to a friend or going, doing something that would distract me from the idle thoughts. But it was a lot of that. And it was crazy to unravel those thoughts. It was a lot of work.
Especially when they get really aggressive and I don't know if yours get really aggressive, but mine get really aggressive, like really, like just really angry. And it's weird because I don't get angry, but my thoughts get angry. Like they get really, they swear a lot.
Yeah.
My brain has a terrible mouth. It swears a lot about a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
But you really answered a question for me. And I want to thank you for that because I haven't really understood the whole surrender. Like I haven't understood. Of every single person that I've ever talked to, I haven't understood it, or I haven't heard it in a way that I could understand it. And then what you shared about you just keep, and I used to say, I feel like I kind of need to just take my brain off the ledge. Like I need to keep pulling it back off the ledge. And it sounds like you're validating what I thought, but I've kind of been doing it, but not enough because I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. And I didn't want to do something and fuck it up. So I stopped doing it, but it kind of sounds like it is just pulling it back off yet just come down off the ledge. Just come down off the ledge. You've gone a bit cray. I'm just going to bring you back down off the ledge and I'm just going to put you back on the ground. You've gone a little bit insane. And what I understand is that especially when you're programmed to it. So when your nervous system is ramped up and it's programmed to
Yes.
go the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, like when your
Yes.
nervous system is programmed to do that, it takes a while, and it's going to happen constantly throughout the day. So I can bring myself off the ledge, but 5 minutes later, I'm back up there again. And then I bring
Yes.
myself up, and then 5 minutes later, I'm back up there again. And I'm just
Yes.
bouncing back and forth. And then
Yes.
I was thinking, Jesus, if I'm still going up on, maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe I'm just,
Mm.
but I would give up after a couple of days. And then I'd
Mm.
kind of go, okay, this is just my lot in life. Like, this is just me. This is just the hell that is my life that I now live,
Mm.
and it's never going to change. And you
Okay.
just shared something with me
Mhm.
that has helped, because it's like, no, when I'm getting to that point, when my brain is going, maybe this is just my lot in life, and it's really pulling me down
Mhm.
into like despair and
Mhm.
hell, that
Mhm.
really, like, that
Yeah.
just despair. And like, you're sitting in a pile of shit on the ground, and you feel
Mhm.
like someone's just dumped the whole pile of shit on your head, and you're never getting out because you just piled high. Because I also go into overwhelm a lot.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what you just shared was, no, when you're there, when you're at your worst, just keep, like, that's the time to even
Mhm.
more bring yourself off the ledge. Bring yourself off the ledge. Don't let your brain go and off down. Don't let it get on the train, and don't let it take off.
Right.
Just grab it and pull it back, and grab it and pull it back. And for me, it might be 1,000 times a day.
Mhm.
And it might be 1,000 times a day for 6 months
Mhm.
before it surrenders and goes, okay, I give up. I get it. I'm no longer in charge. You're in charge.
Yes.
But there is one really interesting thing that you said around the money, which I can't relate to, and I wish I could, was you said, I've never been homeless. We've never run out of money. We've always had money. Everything's always been okay. I don't have that. So I have to find a different reality around money, because my reality around money is I was homeless. I did live in a tent. I was in a tent, and I was in a tent at my mum's house. But if my mum
Mm.
wasn't there, I would have been in a tent on the street. And so
Mm.
now my reality is, I can't say, well, it's going to be okay, because you can always go back to your mum's, because my mum's not here anymore.
Mhm.
So, and whenever I ran out of money, I could always go to my mum and ask her for money. So that was
Mm.
always my fallback. My mum was always my fallback. And I
Mhm.
think that's definitely why in the last 8 years I stopped doing any of this, like any kind of work at all, because when she got sick, and then when she died, so she got sick 8 years ago and she died 5 years ago. And it's taken me 5 years to kind of go, okay, maybe I can just put my toe in the water again. Maybe I could just
Mhm.
look at this stuff again. Maybe I could see if I could build myself up again. Maybe I could see if I could build my trust up again. But all of my avenues always lead back to, I always went to my mum for help. I always went to my mum for money. I always went to my mum when relationships ended. Like, I'd always go from a partner to my mum's house. My mum raised me that she was my safety net.
Mhm.
She was my hit. She was my, like, I actually said in a call yesterday that mum raised me that if I was an addict, she was my hit. So she was my heroin, she was my cocaine, she was my alcohol, she was my drugs. Like, she was my hit. So my addict, when you talked about being an addict, my addict was her. She was my whole, like, everything. That's how she raised me. She was an addict herself. She was an alcoholic. And I've never been addicted to anything. And I always wondered, why have I never been addicted to anything when I'm surrounded in a world filled with addicts? Like, a lot of people in my family have been addicts. And it's like, oh, that's why. I was addicted to my mom. I was addicted to the hit, the energy, the victim story, the whole thing that she gave me. I was groomed to be addicted to her. So now
Mhm.
that she's gone, I need to create like an entirely new platform, an
Mhm.
entirely new story that has never existed in my consciousness before. because I've never had to earn money. Like, I have earned money, obviously, but and at any time I needed extra because I had an extra bill or something, I could always go to my mom. So
Mhm.
it's a challenge being in that position where I don't have any examples of where I have never been in trouble, where I haven't ever lost everything and never had somewhere to go. It's hard. It's
It
hard.
is hard. It's very
So,
hard.
but you have answered at least one of my questions that I have
Yeah.
been holding on to for a long time,
Yes.
is to just keep pulling that off the ledge. And it does when it goes too far down because my reality is, if I run out of money, I will become homeless, and then I'll be
Mhm.
living in a tent on the side of the street with my daughter. That is a reality for me.
Mhm.
So it's hard
Yeah.
to create a new story when that
Mm.
has been the reality.
Right. Right. So when I have a question for you. When
Mm.
you're in, is there a time that you can say, okay, yes, there are times when I am in control of my thoughts and when I'm not, my nervous system isn't acting up, when I'm calm, when everything's okay. Do you have moments of that?
I don't know. Because I feel like the underlying energy is that
Mhm.
everything is not okay.
Yeah.
I'm living off. Um, I'm just biding time at the moment until shit hits the fan and everything falls apart.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. That's definitely a
That's
CPTSD.
Yeah, that's what I feel like I'm doing. I'm
Waiting for
just,
the shoot. There's
I'm
something
just,
coming. It's always coming. I'm always going to be looking over my shoulder because there's something coming.
I'm just waiting for it. And for me, it is around money. I'm just waiting
Always
to
on
lose
guard.
everything and end up with nothing.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for it to happen,
Mm.
which isn't good, because
Yeah.
if you go by the law of attraction, we create our reality. It's like, well, then I'm screwed.
Right. I think there's some grace in there somewhere. The thing with I did the Course in Miracles has been a big part of my journey. And one
Mm,
thing that I learned in Course in Miracles is that when we have such a strong attachment to a thought process,
mm,
that we can say, okay, I'm willing to see this differently. I don't know how to see this differently, but I'm willing to see this differently. And just in that act of saying, okay, I'm willing, it leaves room for a different way to see things. And this is
mm,
something I literally just dealt with 2 nights ago, that I had come, like, there's another layer of this coming up again. And
mm,
so 2 nights ago, I'm like, okay, I'm willing to see this differently. I am willing to see all of this differently. Show me another way to see it. And then I went to sleep. It's like, because sometimes sleep is the best way to reset. And then the next morning I woke up and I was told, because I meditate first thing in the morning, told just go through the day, just do your thing, do what you need to do for the day, and don't think about it. So I just didn't think about it and just did the things that I was supposed to do
mm,
and gave myself grace. Right. I went and got Starbucks, and I don't normally drink Starbucks. But that's like first thing in the morning. It's like I needed a little bit of extra because my energy was really low. But then this morning I woke up and it's all gone. There's a whole different way of seeing things and a whole different energy around that.
mm,
So even when you do the work, it still comes back because we are in an environment. We're bathed in these stories, we're bathed in this energy. So it'll go layer by layer by layer. So don't be discouraged, right? Because it doesn't mean once you do it, it's gone forever. It's just that the next time it doesn't last as long. It's like, oh, okay, I recognize this angst. It doesn't feel good. What's going on? What is my thoughts? What do I need to do? What's the reality? What's the evidence? And then I'm willing to see this differently, and then distracting myself and letting the change happen. But through the surrender, through life will show us how it supports us, right? But we have to be willing. So, okay, I'm willing to see all of this differently. Show me a different way. And that's where the human design helped me, because human design gave me a way to make decisions through this process. So for me, as I'm a manifesting generator, I'm designed to respond to life, not to go out and make things happen. But I spent my whole life making things happen. So to wait to respond, that was really, really hard. And then we go back to, as I'm waiting to respond, I'm having to distract myself. I'm having to talk myself off the ledge. I'm having to bring myself back to, calm while I'm waiting to respond. And then something would come across my path to respond to, and I would get lit up about it. And then I would move towards that thing. And at each time I did that, I was shown a little bit more about how life supports me. And so then the next time I could trust it a little bit more. And so the next time I was like, okay, now I'm going to trust it a little bit more because it showed me that. So let's see what it does this time. And then I would be shown again. And then the next time I could trust it for a little bit more. So it was a stair step for me. It didn't happen all at one time. But because I had nothing to lose, I think it happened a lot quicker than it happens for maybe other people, because I was so willing to just be in that total surrender and to go to battle with this. I was willing to do that on a bigger scale than probably most people that have something to lose.
Yeah, I
But
get
it
that.
is a battle. It's a battle of the mind.
Mm.
But I mean, I was going to say one thing I learned that was enormously helpful was the 5 brain states and the 5 stress states.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard about those?
I live under a bit of a rock.
Okay. Well, this is going to be tremendously helpful. So we have 3 parts of the brain. So we have the prefrontal cortex, which is the largest part, which is the reasoning, logical side of the brain. Then we have the limbic system, which is the emotional part. And then we have the instinctual brain, which is the reptilian brain. So we have those 3 brains. And the reptilian one is the one we come with that. And then we develop the limbic, and then we develop the prefrontal cortex. Now, if you have trauma in childhood, it develops differently. And we can be habituated to states of overwhelm rather than states of peace and calm, which sounds like, I mean, that's what happened for me. So when you think about stress and you think about the level of stress that you have on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being no stress at all, 2 is you're doing something, so there's a little bit of stress, but it's all good. 3 is things are starting to get a little worrisome. 4, you're definitely stressed. Like that's when things aren't going well and shit's gonna hit the fan. 5, shit hit the fan. Like we're destructive at 5. So the theory is that in each one of these stress states, your brain is acting differently. So when you're in 1 or 2, your prefrontal cortex is fully online and fully engaged. When you go to a 3, the prefrontal cortex, or the cortex, starts getting spotty. So it's partially active, but partially not. So it's kind of like having spotty Wi-Fi. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. When you get to a 4, the cortex goes offline completely. So logic and reasoning go offline. So at that point, we're dealing with what we're, our emotional state when we were raised, like that habitual state that we have, and the thoughts that we integrated at a very young age. And then 5 is when it's all instinct. It's all fight or flight. That's when we're destructive. We're hurting people. Things are not good. We're hurting ourselves. Things are not good. Mm-hmm. So the theory is then if you're down here, and this is where down here is where the crazy brain lives. So these thoughts are like buried down in the subconscious down here. Mm-hmm. So when we're in those states, it's going to be impossible to change those states, because the only way we can change these the messages that we have deep in our subconscious is when we're in the cortex. The cortex is the one that can start changing the underlying tape. So when we're in a 4 or 5, when we're feeling overwhelmed, there's no way we can change the tape. At that point, it is all about breath work, doing what we need to do to get back to a state in a 1 or 2. And then when we get back to the 1 or 2, we want to look at the thoughts that were going on. So really the key is when these thoughts are taking over, it's like, okay, I can't change them. I can't control them. What I need to do now is get myself back to a 1 or a 2.
Keep talking. I'm listening. I'm just sending another cat in.
Okay. So that's the key is when when we get to the 1 or 2, then that's when we do the rewriting. That's when we start questioning the stories we were telling when we were down here. But it's only when we're down here that we get to access to those thoughts. So it's important when we're down here to record them so that when we get back up here, then we can address them.
Yeah.
So when we're up here, then we can say, okay, what's the belief that's going on? What's the story? Is it true? What do I want to believe instead? And then that becomes a mantra or an affirmation or something that we repeat over and over and over and over and over again to override this down here. So what's your state? And there's an app, Dr. Laurel Mullen, she did an app. It's called EBT, Emotional Brain Training. And she talks all about this. This is where I learned all of this, EBT. And she has an app that you can do. So if you do this app, she says 10 times a day, you're retraining yourself into the 1 or 2 state. Because we can be habituated to 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And when we're habituated to 4 or 5, there's no way to have a life of thriving.
So it's kind of like Joe Dispenza too. Joe Dispenza. Do you follow Joe? Yeah, he does something similar, but through the meditations.
Yes.
But the very long meditations.
Yes.
But that's designed to completely rewire your
Yes.
whole system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, so those kind of things that can give us clues as to what's really going on. But her thing is just to keep you out of a 4 or 5, or at least help you get back to 1, 2 every time you get to the 4 or 5. Which, if you have CPTSD, you typically live in a 4 or 5.
Which is exactly why I just came up with, because I've been looking and trying different things, and I've kind of pieced together different tools that people have, and I've kind of put them all together and gone, also when I'm at a 5, I can't sit for an hour and bring myself back. It's too hard. But I can take a couple of minutes. I can take 5 breaths. I can follow the energy. I can do that in a state of 5. I can do that when shit has hit the fan and I'm losing my crap, because I can see myself when I'm losing, like I can see my brain when it's about to lose it. I can see it all happening because I trained myself to be an observer a long, long time ago, like back, 15 years ago, a little bit longer now. But yeah, I was training myself to be an observer of my emotional trauma. So here's the kicker for me, is when I'm making a mistake and I'm doing something and it's failing, I sit back and I see myself doing it going, why are you doing that? Like, what? That's no, shouldn't. Damn, you did it. Okay, now here comes it. And so I have actively watched myself make these bad decisions.
Yes.
Over the years, going, yeah, I shouldn't be making that decision. That is not a good decision. Yeah, why are we making that decision? It's not. No, we've already made the decision. Okay, let's go.
Right. That's it's good to be able to observe it, right? So now you've taken that step to where at least you can observe it, which is huge.
Yeah, but then you look at it and you go, I am conscious of the fact that I am making bad choices.
But at least you're conscious of the fact that you're making bad choices.
That is true. Yes.
There's a lot of people making bad choices that they're like, what just happened? In hindsight, they're looking at it. The other skill set that you've developed that is incredibly important is the getting yourself back to a calm state. That's a skill set. And that if you have that, then the battle of the mind gets a little bit, I mean, you got to have that skill. I mean, it's one of the tools that you have to have. So that's good that you've developed that.
It's funny because and the times when my daughter was growing up, when she's 8 now, when she was little, and I was going through overwhelm because like I got sick. So when mum got sick, all my control issues came out. Like all my control issues from all my trauma came out, and a massive eating disorder appeared. I'm sure it's kind of been underlying there for a long time, but it really got megaphoned when mum got sick. And I would, because I was so overwhelmed all the time because I wasn't eating. I was, my natural way is to just restrict food, stop the flow of energy. I don't trust anything in this world. I don't trust any energy coming in. I don't trust any energy going out. So I'm going to shut the door. And then that landed me like seriously, severely restricting food. And when I was in overwhelm, I would lose my shit, and I'd be standing there like telling my daughter off for something. As I'm telling her off, I will also say, this is not about you. I'm just losing my shit because of my trauma from my past, and this isn't about you, but you're right in front of me and you are the catalyst. So I'm really sorry that I'm taking this out on you, but just go with me and just keep remembering that this is not about you. It's about me while I'm losing my shit at you. And I'm really sorry.
Wow.
Because I didn't want her to take it on. And I knew,
Mm-hmm.
and I made a deal a long time ago with the divine that, or the universe, if I was ever going to have children, I had to be able to do it differently. I had to be able to parent my daughter in a way that was completely different to my mom. And
Mm-hmm.
my way of parenting was to be taking responsibility for my very poor behavior as I was in the poor behavior, which is where I think the observer came in, like all that observation work that I did of being
Mm-hmm.
able to observe myself when I was having meltdowns, when I was doing things like that. I used it in that. I didn't necessarily use it in other areas. Like I haven't used it in money, and I haven't used it on me, but I have used it on my daughter because I didn't want her to think that me being overwhelmed and losing my shit because I couldn't clean the house and the house was a mess and she was just making it
Mm-hmm.
like 500,000 times worse than it was because she's 3 or she's 4 or she's
Right.
5. I
Yeah.
didn't want her to think that me losing my shit was her fault. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to come up with a way of how can I get her to understand that this is not about her, it's about me while I'm in the middle of having this meltdown, while this energy is active, because I didn't want her to take it on. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time as I need to express it.
Right. Right.
But it's I want to kind of bring that into appreciating you because you've validated a lot of things for me on this call. Um, you've also kind of helped me realize that I'm not weird. Like these parts of me, this ability that I have to have a meltdown while I am teaching my daughter in the middle of a meltdown, it's not me being broken. I always assumed that there was something wrong with me because I would be teaching her this stuff and I'd have people say, you can't teach your child that it's not. Like she doesn't have the ability to understand it's not about her. Like just
Mm-hmm.
have a meltdown. Don't make it a teaching moment. Just have a meltdown. And then going all the way back to the beginning of our phone call where you talked about how fives are leaders and how we do things that are completely different to everybody else and how we are out the front and we are on our little island and we are in our isolated world. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of a lot of the things that I stopped. So I stopped working on myself, all my trauma stuff when I was doing it and going through all the layers of onion. I did it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There was not an off switch for me. I loved these conversations. I loved working on my stuff. I
Yeah.
loved finding all my triggers and traumas and using everything outside of me as a mirror to
Mm-hmm.
what was happening inside of me. To if I went to the shops and there was a cashier and she was having a bad day, I would go, where am I being an asshole to myself because she was just an asshole to me, and she is a direct mirror of me. So, and I chose her instead of choosing that lady over there. It looks like she's actually quite nice. Why did I choose this one? But I had so many people come to me and say, you can't do that. You can't do this 24/7. You will burn yourself out. You will ruin your life. You're going insane because you're spending so much time in the negativity. But what I'm realizing from this conversation we've had is I just did things completely differently to everybody else around me. And instead of, but then obviously the three then came in, and then I go, well, I must be failing because that's what I do.
Yes.
I must be failing. So I'm going to just shut it all down and close it all up, and I'm going to put it into a box. I'm going to put it into Pandora's box, and I'm going to lock it. But what you've done is help me realize, hang on a minute, what if I was never wrong? What if they just didn't get it? What if what I was doing was actually creating a completely new way of existing on this planet, a completely new way of interacting with children, where children are raised believing that they are not the reason their parents are losing their shit, that it's not their fault their parents are upset about the dirty house. It's the parents' fault. It's the parents' responsibility that goes back to when they were children and they got punished for having a dirty bedroom. Like, who gives a shit? Your kid has an untidy bedroom. Who cares in the whole scheme of life? Who cares? You only have to live with that untidy bedroom for about 16 years or 18 years, and then it's going to change.
Right.
But yeah, it's just, this whole conversation has just completely shifted.
There are some things I'd love to share with you in looking at your chart that I think could give you some more insight. And we could touch on those really quick. If you do you know your time of birth?
I do.
I can pull your chart. I can pull your chart if you have time.
I have all the time in the world. I'm procrastinating from going outside and building another chicken coop.
Okay. All right, hold on a second. Let me share my screen. Okay. So just a couple of things I want to point out that I think will be super helpful for you. This openness. So you see some of the centers are colored in and some are white. The white centers are where we're taking energy in and amplifying it. So we take energy in from the world around us and amplify it in our open centers, our white centers. The ones that are colored in, that is where we're putting energy out into the world. So the ones that you have open, you have the solar plexus, which is all about emotion, that's open. So people with an open solar plexus tend to take in other people's emotions and amplify them. So when it may be uncomfortable to be around strong, intense emotions for somebody with an open solar plexus. So the important part here is to recognize when you're having big emotions, look at who you're around and maybe what energy you've taken in to amplify. So do you guys have Walmart in Australia?
No.
Do you know what Walmart is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a big retail store that has everything, and it's just full of people all the time. So I used to, I have an open solar plexus as well. And so I would be with my kids, we'd be fine, everything would be fine. I'd be happy, I'd be joyful, I'd be peaceful, I'd be patient. We'd go to Walmart to get something, and within 5 minutes of being in Walmart, I'm a raving bitch.
Yeah.
And I'm just frustrated. I don't know what's happening. Like, it's overwhelming to me. So then I realized that this is the situation. I also have an open mind. So I'm taking in other people's thoughts and amplifying them as well as their emotions.
Do you know what? This explains so much, because we live on 140 acres now, out of town. Like, the neighbors are over there. There's nothing around us. It's just surrounded by bush. And we moved here because when we were in the city, with what happened in the last 3 years, I got to a point where I was waking up at 1 o'clock in the morning with massive panic attacks. I couldn't function, couldn't sleep. I was in so much fear. And I remember sitting there one day thinking, I can feel everybody Like I can feel how scared everybody is. And on a general, you'll understand this, and on a general day-to-day basis, life is okay. Life was okay. Like I could handle life. I could go to the shops and come home and go into my little bubble inside the house and everything would be fine because the neighbors, like they would, there wasn't that, like the general energy in the world
Mm-hmm.
was fine. But then shit hit the fan. And all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden, every single human being on the planet was in a place of fear. Like
Yes.
they were all in a place of fear. And
Mm-hmm.
it was so hard. It wasn't, I just went to the shops and then came back because I do understand that. It was, I'm in my own home and I
Mm-hmm.
can't turn this off.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, yeah, I had to come to 140 acres just to
Yes.
get away from it because it was just
Yes.
so loud and so hard. So you've just validated that for me. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing is this is the pressure center. This is the root and completely open. And this is the pressure center. They call this a pressure center. This is also a pressure center. The whole idea of the energy with human design is to get the energy to the throat. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the throat. So the energy comes in here, the pressure pushes it to the throat. And
Mm-hmm.
up here, the energy comes in, the pressure pushes it to the throat. So there's these pressure centers that are natural. If you have white on the top and the bottom, you have the tendency to take in other people's pressure and amplify it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this, they call this the pressure sandwich. So when you have both white on top and bottom, you feel this constant pressure to do something, to get something done. There's not enough. There's never going to be enough, or I've got to do something. And it's like this constant feeling of I've got to do something, the pressure. So understanding this is
Yeah.
very important for
How do
people
you
that have.
alleviate that then? Because if it's constantly there and it's always there, how do I? Because it is always there. Like that's why I'm
Yes,
always constantly doing and moving, and why I can't
yes,
meditate. And it's like I
yes,
can't meditate. I got shit to do.
yes, yes. So one of it is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
When you become aware of this, then you recognize, okay, I'm feeling pressure. Is there something that actually needs to get done? Or is this the pressure I'm feeling that's getting amplified in my system?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if it is no, there's no, you don't have to get something done, then you can take a step back and say, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to clean. I'm going to do, so it's
Something.
really the recognition of knowing that you have a tendency to feel this intense pressure that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do something.
Got it.
So just the awareness that your system may be telling you something that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
So you can start questioning that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, of course, for the projector, projectors don't have consistent access to the sacral energy, which is the workforce energy. So for projectors, it's really important for you to honor and protect your energy. So resting when you need to rest. You're not designed to be the workhorse, although the projectors I know are probably the hardest workers I've ever seen. But what happens is you can tend to take in other people's sacral energy and amplify it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can borrow energy from others and amplify it and be super busy. Just pay attention to that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just don't want to burn your system out
Yeah.
by doing too much. So they say the projector for a projector, the average hours of work should be about 3 to 4 hours a day.
That's about all I can do. I'm actually really tuned in because of what I went through with getting really sick and my eating disorder. I've had to be extremely careful with my energy, with how much I do during the day, because there were times where I would do something for an hour. And because my energy was really low, because my intake of food was so small, I'd do something for an hour, but then it'd take me 4 days to recover. Or
Mm,
I'd go to the shops, but then I couldn't do anything for about a week and a half because I would just, my whole system would be fried. So
mm-hmm,
now I've kind of intentionally set up like this feeling inside of me that when my center, when I have had enough, it's like I've set up this inside of me just goes, nah, you're done. The desire's gone, the inspiration's gone, the ideas have gone, the thoughts have gone. Like it all just gets put away in a filing cabinet. It's like, no, you're done now. It's like, damn. Like, can't I? No. And I physically cannot do anymore until that filing system or whatever it is opens back up again, because I've rested long enough. So I don't actually have a choice.
That's good. That's
it's now
good.
forced on me.
That is good, because a projector who is well rested is available for the inspiration to come.
Yeah.
A projector who is not well rested will have a hard time finding the inspiration.
Yeah.
And inspiration is really important when we're learning a new path in life. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about getting rid of these money stories. We're talking about having a whole different life where we're not working for money, where we're right, when we're living according to our design and we're being supported by life in a way that we've never been supported before. So having the inspiration is key. So that's good that you recognize that with your energy. The other thing I will say is right here, you have this channel from 43 to 23, and you can Google search any of this and find more information. So you just look for the channel 4323. That's called the Freak to Genius, which means you'll have ideas that are not traditional, not normal, and your job is to bring new ways of doing things. So not only is your 3 telling you to find new ways of doing things, your projector is you hold new ways of doing things, and you've got this Freak to Genius channel, which is going to bring in new ways of doing things. So that's kind of your journey. So
and then I have on top of all of that, you're a monumental failure no matter what you do.
And why is that? And that's because you're comparing yourself to other people
constantly. Yeah.
But you are here to show a different way.
Yes.
So if you compare yourself, then it's like it's like trying to judge a fish because he can't climb a tree.
And going right back to the beginning, when you shared that you believe in dark and light, and you believe that darkness, like it puts things in front of us to try and stop us, I've always kind of had this underlying belief that the darkness just keeps putting that comparison. I have an idea to do something, and then all of a sudden something will jump in front of me, and as a comparison, it's like, oh yeah. And then my brain goes off with that. And I do kind of like you, I believe that there are dark forces here that are really trying hard to stop us. And they just drop images. They don't do anything. They just drop an image. There you go. What about that? It's like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah. And 5s, especially. Okay. So on the profile spectrum, you got 1 through 6. There's numbers. You got 2 numbers that are 1 through 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers are about a personal experience. 5 and 6 are about the collective experience. So you're here for the collective. You're here to make an impact. You're here to bring something to the world, to the collective. So I think we have a little bit of a harder time with the dark energies. I think we have a little bit less freedom of free will. I think we have more consequences if we're not on our path, because we are here for the collective.
Yeah. Do you kind of feel like free will in some ways doesn't, this is going to sound really weird, but it won't sound weird to you, but it sounds really weird to a normal person. When people ask me about my daughter, she was a donor, and they ask me, what's the story? And I'll keep it really brief. But basically, I say, I didn't choose her. She was chosen for me. I didn't choose to have her. It was just this overwhelming energetical experience that I had to have. There was no, well, no, I don't want to do that. There was no, well, I like, there was no option for me to do anything else other than have her exactly the way that I had her. And I often say, if there was a moment in my life where free will did not exist, that would be it. That was,
Mm,
she was universally planted in my life. And I just got on the boat. Like I
mhm,
just, I just, my physical body just got moved in all the directions to make it happen. I didn't do that.
mhm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah, for sure. So I think, yeah, I think that we have free will to an extent,
yeah.
but I tend to think it's been my experience that I can't go too far off of the plan, the
No,
bigger.
no, because then you just like something happens and then you end up, well, here you are. Like I went off, obviously, the last 8 years. I went off, but here I am again.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
here you are again.
Yeah.
You
You
tried to
can't.
go down the path, it didn't work. You cocked it up. Here you are again.
Yeah.
Try something
Yeah.
different because what you just did didn't
Right.
work.
Exactly. You might as
even
well surrender.
even my TV show, like here I am again doing
Yeah.
my TV show 15 years later, 10 years later, or however long it's been. Here I am again doing it.
And I'm so glad you're doing it because here's a couple other things here. This gate 48 is
Mm-hmm.
the well of wisdom. But you see how you only have half the channel.
So
The
I only have
other,
half the wisdom.
you hold the wisdom, but getting it to the throat, you need help.
Right.
So
Yeah.
having conversations, you
Yeah,
can hook up
right.
with somebody else and the energy will give you that outlet to the throat.
Oh, that makes so much sense why I have this overwhelming desire where I actually say this answers so much. When people say, why don't you just sit and do videos and share your wisdom? And for as long as I've known that I've been connected, I sit back and go, but I can't. I
Yes.
cannot be one of these people. And I watch them do it and I compare myself
Yeah.
to them and go, there's
Yes.
something wrong with me. I
Yes.
cannot sit in front of a camera and just talk
Mhm.
about what I know. It has to, and I've known this for a long time, which is
Mhm.
why I started my TV show in the first place. It has to come out in conversation. I
Yeah.
cannot do it without being in conversation with somebody else. And
Yes.
this, I guess, explains why. And yes, I've always thought there was something wrong with me. Like I'm not wise enough, or I can't talk well enough. So maybe I should clear more blocks. Maybe I should clear more sabotages. Maybe I need to clear something because I
Yeah.
can't just sit and share for hours like other people can.
I have the same thing. So I have the
Yeah.
same 48 channel without the 16. So what
Yeah.
I do, I literally have my phone behind the computer and
Yeah.
it's recording me having this conversation.
Yes.
So that when I want to share wisdom, I splice out the little pieces of wisdom that I've shared and it's there, it's recorded.
Yeah. Because
Because
how
I
good
have the
is the
same thing.
wisdom that comes out of your mouth sometimes?
And it's not even our wisdom. It's
No.
like I'm learning when I'm talking.
Yeah.
I'm learning when I'm teaching
Yeah.
because there's things being pulled out of me that I don't even know are in there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's something for you to know that for
Yes.
you having these conversations, that's where you're getting the wisdom. You have the well of wisdom. So,
Well,
and then recognizing that some people are receivers of that and that can pull it out of you, and some people can't.
yep.
So there could be times where you're spewing out wisdom and it's just a beautiful thing. And you learn this new thing that you just said, and you want to go share it with another friend. And you go talk to the other friend and it just falls flat.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, yesterday it made a lot more sense than it's making right now.
But it also comes in that moment too. And I think I learned a long time ago, especially when I was coaching. And again, another reason why there's so many reasons, like so many reasons why I shut everything down. But another reason was because I understood that is that the energy coming through me, the person standing in front of me was there for me. It was there so I could learn something. It was there so I could receive the wisdom for them, for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
that part of me that was raised to not be selfish, to not think that I was important, to not think that I was relevant or valid or worthy, which
Mm-hmm.
started to go, but if you're getting the information that's benefiting you, it's not meant to benefit you, it's only meant to benefit them. So there's something wrong there. You need to, like, you're doing something wrong. You should not be getting anything out of this. It should just be about them. And that was a real challenge for me. I had to, like, that was another thing of that pushback. I couldn't fight against all of these different reasons for why I had to shut everything down. There were too many reasons. There were too many stories, too many beliefs, too much darkness. Because really, I don't know how long you've been doing this, but there was more darkness back then than there was light. There were more people that were in the darkness, that were unconscious, that were unaware. Really, it's only been in the last 5 to 8 years that consciousness, like a massive veil is lifted, and now all of a sudden everybody channels and everybody's connected and everybody has this wisdom. But back when I was doing it, you couldn't find people. Like, it was really rare and unusual. So and I think that's because there was so much darkness, and somewhere along the line there was a veil that shifted where a little bit more light could get in and a little bit more less darkness, and it's made such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One more thing I want to share, and then I'm done with sharing on this tonight. This arrow right here facing to the right, these arrows, they're called variables. In the evolution of humanity, in the past, we were all left-facing arrows, and left-facing arrows are strategic, linear type arrows. The energy is more linear and strategic. Right arrows are more open and receptive. So you think back in the past, which is where we've been, everything's very strategic, very linear. A happens and B happens and C. It's very much consistent. Where we're going will be all right, and all right is very open and receptive. It's like the co-creation with the life force energy. Right now we're in between. So everybody has a different configuration of arrows. Some people have, 2 left and 2 right, or 3 left and 1 right, or 3 right and 1 left, or 4 right and 4 left. So there's all different configurations right now as we're going through this shift. So you have a left, this is the brain, and a right mind. So you have a natural, this is what I have too. I have the same exact configuration that you have. So it's the left brain. So we want to be linear and strategic over here, but our mind is very open and receptive. So it's this dichotomy of things going back and forth. And this was really hard for me in my surrender process, because my surrender is open and receptive, but then I have this brain, this left brain that goes, but I want linear and strategic. So balancing those two out, just being aware of it, gives you something to think about when you're thinking you're too linear or you're not linear. Not like, it's natural for you to be both. This one, though, is the one that shocked me, because you hear about law of attraction and be very specific with what you want to bring in the world. It's not true for everybody. So this arrow here on the bottom right, if it's facing right, you're designed to be more open and receptive, less specific and strategic with your manifestation, with your creation. So if we have a right facing arrow on this variable, and we're trying to be very specific with what we want to manifest, it's not working. We're short circuiting the system, our system.
Or you're shut down to receiving, then you're also not going to receive.
Right. So for me, what I found is to be open and receptive, for me to say, I want to have the experience of making an impact in the world, whatever that looks like. So I say, here's the experience I want to have, but I leave the results up to the divine.
Got it.
So for us with the right facing arrow down here, it's better. The less specific we are, the better. It doesn't mean we're not manifesting. It just means we're not designed to manifest specifically. So we're designed to say, okay, I want to experience clarity. I want to experience abundance. I want to experience, like for me, it's impact. That's the big word for me. Power and impact. Now, in my mind, And this is where I got tripped up. In my mind, power and impact meant a $5 million company. If I have a $5 million company, I can have a lot of power and impact in the world. So
Yeah.
that's why I held so tight to that company. And I was very specific in visualizing what I wanted and seeing it work out as specifically the way I wanted it to. But when I surrendered and I learned this open and receptive, I just said, okay, I want to make an impact with power and sustainability. And now I've been given 3 products, 4 brands, 2 patents, 2 companies. It's not something I could have strategically said, okay, this is what I want, right? Because I was looking at it one way, and I've been shown there's so much more.
Mm.
So the open receptive is really important.
Mm.
So those are just some things I wanted to give you as a gift in your
Thank
design.
you. That was oh, this has been the best call. I've had all the people that I've been talking to have sort of been putting all the pieces together and putting all the pieces together and I'm going, yep, I'm taking that and that and that and that. And then you've come in and you've just kind of put like the cherry on the top of the last 2 weeks of just understanding. And now I'm really, really, really clear of the open and the surrender and the self-love and the self-compassion and just calming everything down in every moment that I can remember to just calm everything back down again and just be open and surrender.
Yes. Yes. And that was the one thing I did do was I set one intention. So I had one intention and that's what I kept calibrating to. So when my mind would go crazy, I would just say, nope, here's my intention and focus on that. So I had that one thing that brought me back every single time that I came to. And it was, I want to make an impact with power and sustainability. And so every time something would happen that would knock me down, or my mind would go crazy on something, when I got myself back to calm, I would say, what is my intention? My intention is to make an impact with power and sustainability. Show me. And I would do the next thing I was inspired to do. And if I had no inspiration, I would do something to distract my mind.
Got it.
So I am so excited for your journey and for what you're opening yourself back up to. I think this is going to be really, really good. And we need everyone's voice.
Yeah.
We need everyone's voice.
I agree. Thank you for being willing to share yours.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to share my story, to inspire others, to make the world a better place. We're all in this together. None of us are getting where we're going without everybody else.
Yep.
The more people that we're having these conversations, the more people that are, we're just touching more people, more and more people. There's 7 billion people on the planet. If there's somebody right next to you doing the same exact thing you're going to do, there's still enough people for both of you.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that part of your mind that wants to compare, that's the first thing to just shut down. No,
Thank
not today.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I know this has been a long call.
Yes, yes.
I know it's late for you.
Yeah, it's dark outside. So my neighbors are probably looking and go, what is she doing in there with the ring light?
Thank you. I really, 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 really appreciate this chat.
You're
The
welcome.
whole thing has just been amazing.
Awesome. Well, I want to continue. I want to watch you on your journey and be here to support you however I can.
Thank you.
So let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. And am I following you on Facebook? Are we friends on Facebook?
I don't know, actually. Hang on, let me open the door for my dog that needs to go out to go to the toilet. Maybe, I'm not
We
sure.
probably
actually
are. If you were able to send me a message. I'm looking.
I think some of my messages got lost in going to people's spam folders, but no, I think I might be.
Well, if we're friends, then it comes through. Let's see.
This is I created a whole new profile, so I only have about 10 friends at the moment. Because
is your middle name Grace?
No, my last name is Grace.
It is?
Mm-hmm.
That is a beautiful name. No, we're not friends. I'm gonna friend you right
How are
now.
we not friends?
I don't know. We are now.
I
Now we
will
can stay
go.
connected.
I will go and add you in. I don't know how we're not friends. But yeah, it is a new profile, so that might be why.
Okay. Well, I requested a friend you. A friend requested you.
I
So
have
we can stay connected.
confirmed it.
Excellent.
I'm confirmed. Awesome. I'm going to take so much from this conversation.
Yes. Take it in, sleep on it, mull it over,
Mm,
integrate.
I will. And
All
go
right.
and build a chicken coop because I can't distract myself from that any longer.
Okay. Well, good luck with that.
Thanks, Staci.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That call with Staci. There's just so much in that. So much. I could list it, but I'd be here all day. Please, if you got anything from that call, pop it in the comments below, because I really want to hear. I really want to hear from people. I want to hear how you are being impacted by these conversations. It's important. It's important to acknowledge how these are impacting you and acknowledge for yourself, and also acknowledge for me how these conversations are impacting you. And please do like and subscribe. I think I've mentioned it a few times. If you watch my shows, we all know that likes and subscribes make a difference. They really, really do. They help more people see this, more people that like it, more people that subscribe it. The YouTube algorithm picks it up and throws it out there even more. So if you could please like and subscribe and share with anyone that you think would benefit from this, I would really, really appreciate it. I did not ask Staci at the end of the call for her website link. So I will put those in the description below. Make sure you click on them and go and check out Staci and her human design, because she is amazing and she has a lot of wisdom and she's definitely worth having a conversation with. If you would like to support this channel financially, I would really appreciate it. There will be a Patreon link and a PayPal link in the description below, so you can click on those. And then, as I mentioned in this call, that will enable me to do the free mentoring, which I'm still quite willing to do. Like, it still feels better for me to do that right now, and I'm okay with that. It might change, but for right now, I would take the benefit, join the group, go to lovecreatesfreedom.com, and it will send you to the group. And you can join that group and receive free mentoring from me. There are some things I'm going to be talking about, which I talked about in today's call, actually, which was how to create the observer, how to become more aware, how to create that separation between losing your shit and seeing yourself losing your shit, as opposed to just losing it and then in hindsight realizing you're doing it. I might not be all the way over the other side of being able to stop myself yet, but I am human. However, the awareness that comes out of it is a lot faster when you can actually see it. And like I said, I can, in some cases, I can actually fix it as I'm in it, which is, yeah, I didn't really see as a gift, but I think I do after this call. I think that's it. Make sure that you like and you subscribe. I'm putting the images up here somewhere. Make sure you like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And remember that you are greatly appreciated by me just for watching this episode. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Mwah.